This is Pamela Kuhn, and the curtain is up on Center Stage, the show about the arts and the artists behind their work. Matt Mikkelsen is an actor, screenwriter, and filmmaker. A month ago, he was my guest, and we spoke about all things Star Wars, the beginnings of his acting career, and how he has become the director of a series of short films entitled The Han Solo Chronicles. Matt Mikkelsen is quite simply a joy, and he is back with me again on Center Stage today to speak about a myriad of things from Star Wars to movie news. So good morning, Matt, and welcome back. Is the Force with us?
Well, you said you wanted to be around when I made a mistake, sweetheart. This might be it.
And there we go, kicking off with Han Solo right out of the chute. I love it.
I can't help it.
So what is cooking in the movie world for you?
Well, that's how they say well in Michigan. But my mom's from Michigan. It's that accent is so thick. Yeah.
Outside of
Saginaw.
Detroit. Oh,
Saginaw.
my God.
Yeah, which is outside of Detroit, yeah.
She was from Berkeley.
Oh, okay.
Ended up in L.A., actually.
Oh, really?
And I always say, why did you leave L.A.? Because they end up...
Oh, I thought you were going to say, why'd you leave Michigan? What?
Exactly. It was too cold. They go to Los Angeles. They stay until she gets pregnant with me, and then they move to Eastern Oregon. And I always said, for years and years, if only you'd stayed in L.A., I could have had a big career. But anyway.
You never know.
Anyway, getting back to you.
Yes, getting back to me.
What's cooking? The last time we talked, you were heavy into your Han Solo Chronicles, which I'm so excited about. So what's happened?
Well, my video effects artist that I told you called me and told me how terrible my special effects were, that jumped on board to help me fix it. He had to take a hiatus from working on the Han Solo Chronicles for about a year because he was busy moving and trying to satisfy a bunch of clients, and so he was super busy because he works on it in between jobs because he's doing it out of his own pocket.
Wow.
I try to send him a few bucks here and there, but he's kind of like, dude, what are you giving me money for? I'm doing this because I love this, so cut it out.
Now he is the man, if I recall from our first time around, he was the one who contacted you, and said your visual effects really stink.
Yeah, and he's like, I love your story, but your effects got to go.
I love it.
But he recently resurfaced and found some time to start working on it again, and he has sent me some shots of in the movie when we approach Cloud City, because the ship broke down again, of course, and easily sabotaged for some reason. And we're going to see Lando to see if he could help us out. And so he recently sent me some shots of that approach, and they are just spectacular.
That's wonderful.
And I'm just floored when he sends me stuff because I'm like, I can't believe this is going to be in my thing. So
and there you are, right there on a plate for you. He's just offered to do this.
Yeah, and when we screen this, I mean, I know everyone else's jaw is going to be on the floor and they're going to enjoy it, because a lot of times when you try to share your fan film with a bunch of other fans, they kind of gotta gulp down the hard cheese of the special effects not being very believable, or sometimes the story is just not there. But it's Star Wars, so you get along with it. But sometimes I would much rather have a very good story and terrible special effects. But this way I get both.
Yeah. So how do you do your storyboarding? How do you come upon the stories? You develop these ideas yourself? Or are these offshoots of other films? I mean, you and I know there are 1,000 films out there about Star Wars in between the moments, filling in the gaps. So where are you taking this?
Well, I pick it up 13 years after Return of the Jedi, and Han Solo is a couple of kids. They're around 10, 13 years old.
He has a Han Solo. Has a couple of kids. And because they made up after the Battle of Endor, and I assume they got married and had a couple of kids. Who knows? But that makes sense, right? And so they're hopping around the galaxy on mercy missions and trying to fix a lot of the places that the Empire pillaged, and basically doing humanitarian work. And so he's got the kids with him because it's not dangerous, really. So, but he's also teaching the kids to be self-reliant.
Should we shoot first?
By all means. Just don't tell your mom. How to do things, how to fly the ship, so they're not, on Instagram all day. So,
even there.
yeah. But as far as storyboarding, I just kind of pictured in my head ahead of time what it was going to look like. As a filmmaker, I'm able to edit in my head before I do it. If it's really complicated, yes, I'll try and do some stick figures. But I already pretty much have in my head what I think it's going to look like, and then while I was making it, if I found the backgrounds that I wanted, I made it work. Because I was kind of limited on what I could do, because the green screen ships on YouTube only fly a certain way, and the backgrounds that I found on Google Images were only, very few that were detailed enough that I could use. But now that my VFX guy Marcos is on board, he's totally able to open up the imagination flood. So if I have any other ideas of what I wanted to do, because he's just copying the stuff that I did, but making it way better. He's making it realistic as opposed to my cartoony stuff that I made.
We're in trouble.
What do you mean we're in trouble?
I think we got them burn out their guns.
And that is kind of enough for me as far as the wow factor, because it doesn't need to be super spectacular. It just needs to push the story.
And we're talking about, you want to do about a dozen of these that are 10 minutes long, was it? We were talking about, or 30 minutes long?
The first episode is 30 minutes long. Originally, I cut it up into like 10-minute things, but it worked really well as a 30-minute thing too. And we're going to do some additional episodes with Chewbacca, C-3PO, and a few other new characters, and that takes place a couple of years after the one we already did. And it's just further adventures, and I figure we could do little 5-10 minute little bits, because I have a whole new storyline that we could follow that once again makes sense in the Star Wars universe, because I don't want to do anything that's going to be just silly.
Yeah. Yeah. So that kind of brings me to, let's go out the track here a little bit.
Sure.
Let's talk about The Last Jedi. Can we talk about Rian Johnson and his vision, which maybe most of the Star Wars people out there feel that really went off the rails. I've heard there's even a campaign to try and raise money to refilm the ending, because no one wants to see Luke Skywalker die.
Yeah. And, I mean, the guy was kind of given free rein as far as what he wanted to do, and so he did something completely off the reservation, I guess, and didn't really follow the storyline he was given. Also, there's this whole thing that they want to experiment and try new things, and with this established universe that people find so dear. It's not, this isn't Escape from New York or just some weird little, cult film. This is Star Wars.
This is the huge myth. This is Joseph
like a religion.
Campbell based. We talked about that the first time around, and how dear this is to all of us, and how uplifted we all are.
Yeah.
And we're looking for a huge emotional experience and a real life experience in these films.
It really is not just a movie.
That's right.
Considering how it opened and what it was at the time, and how it brought so many people hope all over the world from different cultures, because it spoke to everybody. So it's not just a movie. It's
right. It's a movement.
It is a movement, but it also gives the fact that people want to dress up like the characters and make their kids dress up like the characters, and then go to conventions where other people dress up like the characters. That's really saying something. And if you start messing with that and saying, well, you know what, I want to take Winnie the Pooh and make him a homicidal maniac. That'll be cool, right? No, wrong. It won't, because it's Winnie the Pooh.
So why should we mess with something that ain't broke, so to speak?
Exactly. We don't experiment with it. Go experiment with something else,
So now they've paid a lot of money, like $22 million, to get J.J. Abrams back to film the next installment, which I believe is already in the process of being filmed. And there are all sorts of rumors. I'm sure you and I are online. We're reading all these stories, like maybe Yoda is going to come back as a ghost. And I heard that maybe Luke Skywalker will do the same, which would be pretty exciting. So we'll have their presence. I mean, I'm only hoping, I
have no idea. I even heard a couple of rumors, or because sometimes there's these YouTube shows of people that talk about this every day.
Exactly.
And they have sources in Lucasfilm and a few in Disney, and they hear things, from these people because they're picking their brain a little bit. And this is kind of how they leak stuff too.
Yeah.
But a couple of these credible sources were talking about how, once again, that they're thinking about remaking it or re-editing it, maybe. They're also talking about putting out there that Luke was force projecting from Tatooine to the Irish island to the salt place.
So
like
he's still around?
Possibly. I mean, that would be a good explanation. But the fact that the director of Last Jedi wants you to go back to books and stuff like that to figure out his movie, that's not very good filmmaking. But
Agreed.
to
absolutely.
backpedal themselves out of this, that's something else. There's also rumors that maybe Kathleen Kennedy is on her way out because
And why would that be?
Because she was treating the Star Wars franchise as a franchise of it just being a movie and not it being important to anybody else, and the fans are secondary.
Right. Right.
Once again, this isn't French Connection 2. This is Star Wars.
Right.
This is really important.
This is sacred,
Yeah.
It's interesting because I was in London and I actually had dinner with the set designer of Rian
really?
Johnson from The Last Jedi. And she waxed on very seriously about how the actors love to work with him, and I'm sure they do. But, all the details they went into, the colors of the Red Room, for instance, the change and indirection of characters. And I just couldn't believe it. And everyone at the table seemed to be in Rian Johnson's, camp. And I was the only one who wanted to go back to the original kind of, the goodness in the story. Let's just stay with that. It just works. We want to be able to rely on that. For instance, like when Rey, finds Luke on the island and she gives him the lightsaber and he just throws it over his shoulder. I thought that was so odd. Who would do that? I mean,
well, not
really.
Luke Skywalker, but I mean,
in Rian Johnson's world, it was.
They changed his, personality and everything, and even Mark Hamill was not happy about that.
Yeah.
But when you're an actor, you do what the director tells you to, unless you're maybe a Harrison Ford and you've got a lot more weight, and you can. Tell the director to go take a hike. I don't know.
When we met the first time, we were talking about the fact that the original Star Wars in 1970.